All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Sober Yoga Girl. I am super excited to have Abby Feltham here on the show with me today. And Abby is a sober influencer, has a ton of followers, makes hilarious reels, and that's how she's kind of come up onto my feed and been really inspiring to sharing your journey. So thank you so much for being on the show, and I'm really happy to have you here.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So Abby, so Abby is in the UK, and I would love to hear more about kind of who you are, Abby, like your story. Tell me a bit about yourself, where you're from, and all that stuff.
Well, yes, I'm in the UK. Yeah, I'm in London. This is only like a recent development in like the last year. Essentially, I spent like the last 10 years backpacking around the world. Yeah, just basically partying around the world, just going around on adventures and not having any responsibilities and doing a lot of drinking.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah. It's only it was only at the beginning of the pandemic that I came back to the UK.
Wow.
And then got sober.
Wow.
Like I lived in Laos for like 4 years. I lived in Cambodia, Australia, the US, Canada,
Amazing.
all around.
I was in Laos in 2019, right before I got sober. I did a little, the typical backpacking through Southeast Asia thing that people do, where they party and then they go to the hostels, so
Yeah.
Sure what that was like.
I was there in 2019. I lived in Vang Vieng for like 4 years. I might have met you there.
That's the place where you where you raft, right?
Yeah, you do the tubing.
I'm sure we met then because there was there were like 2 bars there, right?
Oh my god, yeah. I definitely probably met. I worked at those bars in 2019. So
I'm sure we met in a former life. Yeah. Wow, that's so cool. And so you moved back to London at the start of the pandemic. Was that due to everything going on with the travel restrictions, or what prompted that?
Well, it coincided with a mental breakdown.
Okay.
So it was kind of like, I want to say good timing.
Yeah.
Like I had this awful mental breakdown. I kept on hitting rock bottom. Like I was an absolute mess. And my life was just like crumbling around me. And it was due to like my own mental health issues, and my drinking and my drug taking had really taken its toll on me. Yeah, and I was in a terrible place. And then it coincided with the pandemic, and I was just so reluctant and so stubborn to ever go home and like sort myself out. Like I was like, no, I'm going to travel the world forever, even though I was absolutely miserable. But then the pandemic hit, and then everyone was going home. A lot of backpackers were going home. Everyone was kind of losing their jobs and moving back in with their parents and stuff. Right. And that kind of gave me the kick to actually go home and face my problems.
Right. Wow. And so, I guess a lot of those bars that were probably real tourist places, were people losing their jobs that were working in those bars because there just weren't tourists coming, or?
Yeah. Well, so at the time I was in Canada. I was living on Vancouver Island. I was working in a barbecue restaurant. And I had just lost my job for drinking, for being blackout drunk at work. But then 2 days later, everyone else lost their jobs because of the pandemic.
Wow.
Yeah. So I kind of I tell people now that I lost my job because I was blackout drunk. But at the time I was kind of embarrassed, and I was still coming to terms with everything. I was still very lost, and I was very unsure of myself, and I was very insecure. So I just told everyone it was because of the pandemic.
Right. I mean, it was good timing for
it was.
For that.
It really was.
Yeah. So tell me a bit about yourself. Growing up, how did you start drinking?
Well, I don't know, I've always been a very intense person in the way that I feel ever since I was really, really little, really young, always felt emotions really heavily, really intensely, and I've never been able to manage them. I've learned now, I've been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, but it's something that in any kind of incarnation has been with me my entire life. I just remember being very young and and not being able to manage my emotions, and just things would really affect me. Like I would watch other people, and then like something would happen to them and they'd be able to brush it off. But my emotions just really had an effect on me all growing up and through into my teens. And when I discovered drinking, so in Britain, like there's a big drinking culture, and like pretty much everyone starts drinking when they're teenagers. Like it's a real normalized thing. It is like really ingrained in our culture, like for binge drinking and teen drinking. Like it's kind of like weird if you don't do it, and it's just normal in families, really. And then so when I started drinking, like I was like, oh, this numbs me. Like, and it made me feel a bit more normal, and I could cope a lot better, and I could manage myself better, because like my emotions weren't so intense because I was numbing myself, and I really, really liked that feeling. I loved it. And it kind of like I've always been a very adventurous person as well, and kind of drinking and go to parties, and kind of like that sort of glamorous side to like drinking and partying, I guess you can say, like took me on lots of adventures, and I love that as well. For me, alcohol gave me so much confidence, and it made me feel at peace with myself, and it like took me crazy places, and I went to crazy parties and was doing crazy things. I just thought I was having my best life.
Yeah. And this sounds a lot, I can really relate to that, because I also had a mood disorder growing up, and it was diagnosed, and I was told, to stop drinking, and I just kept drinking on these meds I was on.
Yeah.
And I also kind of felt emotions in extreme. And so I think that is like what I really liked about alcohol, is that it kind of numbed me out from all of that.
Yeah, really similar relationship with alcohol. Yeah.
And so tell me about how did your alcohol consumption increase over time? Like, did you find, I have a similar kind of, not exactly the same with you journey, in that, I lived in the Middle East, but I was traveling all around the world on these like holidays and vacations. And I found that the partying tourist lifestyle just really amped up my drinking. And I'm wondering if you kind of felt that influenced your drinking, or how did it grow over time?
I just kept on drinking. I think I noticed, I guess, like quite early on, that I had a different relationship to alcohol than other people. Like other people would maybe go to parties and they'd have like a few drinks, but I was guzzling. Right. Like guzzling. And then I think I moved to London when I was 18, moved out of home, moved to London by myself, and just threw myself into the party scene there. I guess, I don't know, like I remember like going to house parties when I was first moved to London, and like we'd all be drinking and stuff, and then in the morning, like if we all kind of like passed out at this house party, the next morning everyone would wake up and be like, oh, I'm so hungover, and I'd wake up and I'd start drinking again. Like I think, and then I'd start drinking alone a lot, like when I was kind of like in my early 20s, when I was in London. I left London when I was 23 to go traveling, and then that was my like 10 years abroad essentially. And I found like you said, like a party lifestyle. Right. Like before I went traveling though, I was doing a lot of drugs, I was drinking a lot, I was like I just always wanted to be around it, always. Like I didn't want to have a day where I wasn't around drugs and alcohol.
What was the turning point for you? Like, I know you described kind of like the mental health breakdown and then moving back to the UK. What was the turning point for you in which you decided to choose sobriety? Like, was that something that you realized once you lost your job? Was it something that happened over time in London? Tell me about that.
It kind of came out of nowhere. Like it had been like something I knew I was an alcoholic for a good few years. Like I'd come to the terms with the fact that I was an alcoholic for a good few years before I decided to get sober. But I was just like, I was fine with it. I was like, okay, I'm an alcoholic. I'm a functioning alcoholic, and that's just how I live now. Like, but I didn't want to get sober. Like I just had no interest in not being an alcoholic. I was very, very depressed, and like really self-loathing. And I was like, oh, I'm going to be an alcoholic. I deserve this. I deserve to live my life this way, because, Like I just hated myself so much. I was like, okay, this is me. This is my lot in life. So I continued and masked all of my feelings of depression and stuff. And like, I had toyed with the idea, thinking like, you know, I should probably stop drinking because it is a lot of the cause of a lot of my problems. But I didn't. I have this thing about escapism. Like I'm always, this is like my 10 years traveling the world. You know, I'm always trying to escape things, and I've always like ran away from my problems instead of facing them. And if I just kept on drinking, then I wouldn't have to face my depression. I wouldn't have to face my self-loathing and all that. And then I had in like 2019, 2020, I just kept on hitting rock bottom. Like things weren't getting better. Every time I thought they couldn't get worse, they did. I was living in New York at the time with my boyfriend, and that relationship broke down essentially because of my drinking. Because I was like blackout drunk every night, and I was just an awful person to be living with. Like an absolute nightmare. My boyfriend kicked me out. I moved to Canada, moved in with a friend there, and then I immediately met this guy who was a recovering crack addict, and he was also really, really depressed. So there was like, oh man, it was a crack addict and an alcoholic, both incredibly depressed. We kind of like collided, and we were both like, let's do it. Let's like take each other down. And like, we just went on this like massive bender. I started smoking crack. I was in a really, really bad place. Like I was just taking a lot of drugs and not caring about what happened to me. Like I had absolutely no interest in whether I lived or died. And then I moved from the city that I was in. I was like, oh my God, I have to stop this. Like I'm actually a crackhead now. Like I have to end this. So I left the city to get away from him, to get away from the drugs, and then moved to Vancouver Island. And I was like, right, I'm going to start this new life. Everything's going to be fine now. But it wasn't. Like my problems just followed me. Yeah. Like nothing got better. Like I just thought like, okay, move to a new place. I'm going to recover. No, like my drinking got so bad. I was living by myself in a trailer, and I was just drinking so much, and I was really, really depressed, really, really depressed. And then I tried to kill myself, and then I ended up in a psych ward for 3 days, and then I got fired from my job for being drunk. And it's just one thing after the other, and I was just like, oh my God, things are not getting like better. And I just like I said before, I just had no interest in whether I lived or died. And then the pandemic hit. I went back to the UK, and again, I was a mess. I was back at my mum's house, and I just being back at home, being back in my childhood home, I kind of started reflecting on everything that happened, like especially in that last year, and just everything. It's like the same behaviors kept on repeating themselves. Like I noticed throughout my life, like nothing ever got better because I was still going down this route of ignoring my problems, and I wasn't helping myself in any way. And then I just had like an epiphany, I guess. It was like a little voice was saying in my head, like, it doesn't have to be this way. You don't have to live like this. Like it can be better. And I just like, it was then that like I realized like I can't have a happy future with alcohol in my life. Like it's impossible. Like if I want to live, I decided I did want to live. I decided I wanted to fight for my life. And if I was going to do that, I would have to get rid of alcohol and drugs. Like that can't be part of my future. I would have to take control. And then that's when I decided that I wasn't going to drink again.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a powerful story. And I can relate to so many different elements of that. Like I certainly had this escapism thing of like, you know, my life is falling apart in Kuwait. So I'm like, I'm just going to restart it in Abu Dhabi. And I'm like, it's going to be better because alcohol is legal there and I can drink and I'll be happier. And, you know, you hit a point suddenly where you realize like my problems are going to follow me all around the world. Like no matter where I am, unless I face these problems, they're going to be with me. So
yeah, it took me so long to figure that out.
Yeah. Oh yeah, me too.
When I did that, I was like, oh, okay, this is how it works.
And so how did you, what was your sober journey like? Did you join AA, the 12 step? Like what were the tools that helped you in recovery?
So I, as it was at the beginning of the pandemic, everywhere was locked down.
Right.
Like this was like day one of quarantine. So like the entire world was like locked down. I did attend a couple of meetings on Zoom, like AA meetings on Zoom, but I only went a couple of times. And for me, I just decided I was going to do it by myself. I've always been a black sheep. I've always gone against the grain. I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it myself. And yeah, that sparked off a journey of like a year of self-discovery.
Wow.
And learning to love myself, learning who I was. Like I had no idea who I was, because I'd spent so long numbing myself with drugs and alcohol. I had no idea like who I was, what I liked. I had lost all sight of myself. So yeah, it was a year of getting to know who I was. And yeah, I did. For me, my tools were yoga, meditation, breath work. I went through like a spiritual journey as well as getting to know myself. I was kind of learning how to engage with the world in a way that I could actually relate to. You know?
Right. Wow. And so you're one of the first people I've talked to that has like done it on their own, which is really impressive. Like I didn't do AA or the 12 step either. It didn't feel the right fit for me. I mean, I was somewhat on my own, but I was part of 1 Year No Beer. So kind of had that like online community and support. Did you have any communities like that or?
No, not really. Wow. Not really. There was when I was, I guess, maybe like 4 or 5 months sober. I moved to Greece for the summer with like my mum has a house out there. So I moved to Greece with my mum and I was in Greece for about 4 months. And there, although I didn't meet any other sober people, I met a group of amazing women, incredible women who were like very, very, very nurturing. I spent 4 months doing yoga and going to women's circles and getting to know these incredibly like spiritual and wise women and just talking about things and learning about other people. I always found that when I learn things about other people, I learn more about myself. Mm-hmm. So although like none of my interactions with them were like sobriety based, it was all leaning into that right notion of self-discovery and yeah.
Which sounds really similar to the kind of work I do. I do a lot of like sober yoga programs, self-discovery, journaling, and that really sounds like my toolbox for recovery as well.
Absolutely. It was a complete accident as well. Like, like I had like at home, like before I went to Greece, like I'd been doing a lot of yoga. I've been doing a lot of meditation. I have such an addictive personality. I definitely got addicted to meditation, for sure. I was doing like 3 hours of Kundalini yoga a day. I was unemployed as well. Right. So, like, what else am I going to do? But yeah, it was really intense, but it really helped me. And then just by accident, I met these women in Greece. Like, I'm a firm believer of like, you attract the energy that you put out. Yeah. Like when I was a depressed mess, I attracted another depressed person to my life and then ended up on crack. Like when I had this positive energy and I wanted to heal myself, I attracted healing people into my life. And yeah, it was really amazing.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And it's kind of like, I've been thinking a bit about like the sober dating world lately and how when I was first in the very beginning of my sobriety, I felt like there were like no sober people in the world, but it was because I was still attracting the same type of people that I was attracting when I was a partier, right? And the longer that I'm in the sober world, I realize like there's so many of us. Like people are showing up in my life every day that are part of the sober community, you know, like you or like other people I connect with on Instagram. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what was the hardest part about becoming sober?
Facing my problems, facing my mental health issues, for sure. Like I guess I spent the first few months of sobriety just crying. I think I was lucky. I don't want to call the pandemic luck, but I guess I had the luxury of time and space during my early sobriety because of the pandemic, because I was at home and I was alone and I had a lot of time to like reflect. So I spent the first few months crying, like, and I gave myself that time to just wallow. Mm-hmm. Like I had a lot to mourn. I was like grieving my old life, the person I was, and I was experiencing lots of feelings around shame and guilt, and for the things I'd done and the things I'd put myself through. Like I felt very bad to begin with, just thinking like, oh my God, why did I do that to myself? Like, like I put myself through so much trauma. Yeah. So that was the hardest thing. Was to heal myself, to face up, to basically look myself in the mirror, because I've been avoiding that for so long. Yeah.
And that is such a big part of the sober journey that we don't realize. Like it's people just think that becoming sober is like stopping drinking. And I feel like people who haven't been on the sober journey don't understand this, that it is literally like you think you just put down the drink and then it's like literally this deep dive into like so much other, like it goes so beyond just the word sober.
That's so true. Yeah. Definitely.
I was on a podcast episode recently too, where I was talking about my yoga journey, and someone compared it to yoga as well, saying, you know, it sounds like yoga is really similar in that you show up and you think you're doing a stretch and all of a sudden you're like doing Kundalini yoga for 4 hours a day. Yeah. There's like so much more to it than just like the poses. I thought that was like a nice comparison.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that mindfulness.
Yeah. So tell me about, so at the start of the episode, you said that you weren't telling people when you first lost your job, you know, you weren't talking to people about the fact that it was because of your drinking problems, and, you know, you've gotten to this point now where you're being open about it. So how did you switch from being more like private about your sober journey to becoming, you know, now you're a sober influencer, you have all these followers, sober blogger, like, so what changed along the way?
Well, to begin with, at the beginning, I was honest and open with the people I was close to, like my loved ones. That's also something that was really important to my journey, was being open and honest. So I did, I told like my family and my loved ones that I was going to get sober. I was like, I've got a problem and I'm in a really dark place and I'm going to get sober. And like, everyone was just like, wow, that's fantastic. Like everyone like who was close to me knew that I was an absolute mess, and I definitely had problems with alcohol. I don't know if they realized that I was an alcoholic, but they definitely knew that I was like struggling. and then I did keep it quite private. Just the first few months there. One of the things that helped me in sobriety as well was gaining a hobby. So, like, and this is something that I recommend other people to do as well when they first enter sobriety. I'm like, get a hobby, just get something that you can put your energy into, something you really enjoy doing. Something like, if you're a creative person, like a creative thing, something you can channel your emotions in, and you can set goals and stuff. And for me, that was Instagram. I started a fashion Instagram. It's the same Instagram as the account I have now.
Oh, wow.
In fact, the account I have now is actually really interesting. Like, it goes back to 2011. It's the only Instagram account I've ever had. Wow. So if you go right to the beginning, it's like 2011, and you can watch me travel the world through active addiction. Wow. and then when I decided to get sober, I turned it into a fashion account. Yeah, I got really, like, I love clothes and I love style and makeup and everything. and photography as well. So I got really into kind of the fashion community on Instagram. Yeah, I loved it. Like, especially again, we're in lockdown, so it gave me an excuse to like get dressed and put on makeup. Yeah, and I learned about like photography and lighting and stuff, and it was really fun. And I met loads of really cool people who are still my friends today. And yeah, and then through that, like I had started when it was all fashion stuff, I was open about the fact that I was in like addiction recovery and that I was sober. But it was just like I would just mention it every now and then.
Right.
And then after about a year of doing a fashion account, I felt like I'd completed it. Like, I was like, okay, the fashion Instagram world has given me everything that it can offer. Like I've completed my project now. And then I was like, by that point I had posted a few videos about sobriety and about recovery, and they'd gotten like people were really positive about it. And I was like, oh, I wonder if people would be interested in seeing more of this stuff. So yeah, I started like full on posting about it and being like, look, this is me. I'm a mess. I'm in addiction recovery. But let's talk about it. And people responded to that. And then, yeah, I've always been quite an open person anyway. I'm an oversharer, like definitely. And yeah, that's pretty much how I started being super open about it. And kind of, I think that there is a space for that on social media for being completely honest about the highs and lows of sobriety. Yeah.
Yeah. So that kind of sounds a little bit similar to me in that I've had my Instagram for ages too. It's not the first one I had, because I had one and then I had a yoga one like way back in the day. But I was always paranoid about my social media because I was a teacher before I was doing this work full time. And so I had a few photos of me drinking alcohol, and then when I decided after a month sober, I was like, okay, I want to start working on a career full-time in yoga, but I can't have any of this content of me with alcohol. So I went through and there were maybe like 10, 15 posts over the whole time of me drinking, and I deleted them. And it's funny because then if you look through my social media, it looks like I just never drank. Yeah. And then all of a sudden on day 90, I shared for the first time that I was sober. And then it became, like something that I became more courageous about sharing. And now it just kind of happened over time. Like you said, like I posted some things and got like such positive feedback on my sober journey. And then I realized like this is something that is really, and I didn't know anyone that was sober when I started doing it because people don't talk about it. And so to come across people that are similar to you and you feel like you're not alone, it's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was like really shocked when people were like responded to my sobriety content.
Oh my God, your reels are so good. I love them. Like,
oh God, thank you.
It's your reels that I'm like, okay, I need to get this girl on the podcast. Like, they're so good.
Thank you. I have a lot of fun making them.
Yeah.
Like I make them and I watch them back and I'm like, I am such an idiot. I love this.
There's one person in the sober community, I can't remember who it is, but she has a mocktail costume. I don't know if you know who I'm talking about.
Oh, I think I've seen her pop up once or twice. That rings a bell.
I keep thinking I need to order one and get it shipped to me for all of my reels where I like have a conversation with alcohol. They're so good. All right. So I have one last question for you, Abby. What advice would you give to someone who wants to quit drinking?
I would say, well, first of all, congratulations. Advice if you're to quit drinking. Like, I think it's important to kind of assess where you are in life and kind of evaluate what's going on. Like, what's your relationship to alcohol, and kind of almost like therapize yourself in the way of like, why do you have a bad relationship with alcohol, or why? But yeah, just ask yourself lots of questions, and then think about what you want your life to be like, the things that are missing, and like the kind of steps that I took were getting a hobby, telling, like, being honest with people. I know it's not right for everyone to be honest with the people around them, but for me, being honest with people was like a complete game changer. It's because it kind of made me accountable for what I was doing, because people knew. It also meant that the people around me understood how to support me in the way that, like, not to pressurize me to drink. Like, I guess if sometimes if you're like, oh, I'm not drinking tonight, like people just think it's a kind of a light-hearted thing, and they're like, oh, just go on, have a drink. Whereas if you're like, oh, I have an honest desire to change my relationship with alcohol, like, for these reasons, then they know, like, there's a boundary there and not to pressurize you or offer you anything. So yeah, be honest with people around you, get involved with the community, like whether it would be AA or like the Instagram sober community is amazing. Just talking to other people about what you're going through. Like you were saying before, like, it's when you first get sober, it's like, do other people do this? Like, it's kind of like you don't realize there are other sober people out there. But there are people who have similar experiences, and then being able to talk about that and relate to people and talk to like-minded people, like, it really, like, yeah, it kind of like affirms your journey, and then it makes you feel less alone, and you do get like support out there as well. Yeah,
absolutely. Oh, well, Abby, thank you so much. It was honestly so wonderful to have you on the show. And it's so interesting because, you see parts of people's life, little glimpses. Like when we first hopped on, I was like, oh, there's the real studio where you make your reels. And I just had no idea that we would share so much in common, right? From like traveling around the world and like our mood disorder, and just, I feel like it was like chatting with a friend.
Yeah.
So I really, really appreciate you taking the time to be on the show. And yeah, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. I love chatting with you. It was really nice to talk.
Yeah. All right. Take care, Abby, and I'll see you soon.
Okay. I'll speak to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.